I'm Murray Newlands from Open Future Forum.
How should a CFO measure the return on AI? A CFO should measure the return on AI the same way they measure any investment, by naming what it replaces, counting the full cost, including the people who oversee it, and setting a payback period before deploying, not after. The trap is letting AI be added on top of everything with the benefit assumed and the cost vague. The discipline is specific and subtractive. I'm Murray Newlands, partner at IA Seed Ventures and founder of Open Future Forum, which runs small off-the-record dinners for CFOs, CROs, CISOs, and CTOs in Silicon Valley, 100 events to date. Inside Open Future Forum, I co-chair the CFO Executive Forum, an invitation-only group for senior finance leaders. This is one of the most common questions at my CFO dinners, and it is the right question, because measuring AI return well is what separates a real program from a graveyard of pilots that nobody can justify. Let me give you the way the finance leaders who do this well actually think about it. Start with the most important move, the one most people skip. Be subtractive, not additive. Hype adds AI on top of everything you already do and calls the result transformation without ever subtracting anything. Real return is the opposite. A specific AI deployment removes a specific amount of work, or a specific cost, or a specific delay. If you cannot name what gets smaller when you add the AI, you do not have a return. You have an expense with a good story. So the first question is always, what does this replace? Not what does it add? What does it remove? Second, count the cost all in, because the headline cost is never the real cost. The license or the API spend is the visible part. Underneath it sits the cost of the people who oversee the system, the cost of integrating it with your existing tools, the cost of cleaning the data it runs on, and the cost of the time your team spends checking its output. An AI agent that looks cheap on the invoice can be expensive once you count the human supervision it requires. The CFOs who get burned are the ones who priced the license and forgot the oversight. The all-in number is the only number that matters. Third, set the payback period up front, in writing, before you deploy. This agent removes this much manual work, it costs this much to run all in, and it pays back in this long. If you can write that sentence honestly, you have a plan. If the value story is vague and the cost story is missing, you have a pitch, and pitches do not survive contact with a budget. Writing the payback down before you start also protects you later, because it gives you a clear standard to measure the actual result against, instead of grading your own homework after the fact. Fourth, separate the two kinds of return, because they are measured differently. There is hard return, which shows up directly in the numbers. Fewer hours on a task, lower cost to process a transaction, faster close. Measure that precisely and hold it to the standard you set. Then there is soft return, the speed, the quality, the capacity freed up for higher value work. Soft return is real, but it is easy to inflate, so be skeptical of it. The honest move is to fund on the hard return and treat the soft return as a bonus, rather than funding on a soft return you cannot pin down. Many bad AI investments are justified entirely on soft benefits that never get measured because they never could be. Fifth, watch for the cost that moves rather than disappears. A common pattern is that AI removes work in one place and quietly adds it somewhere else. It automates the first draft but adds a review burden. It speeds up the analysis but adds a data cleaning step. If you only measure the place where work went down and ignore the place where it went up, your return is fiction. Measure the whole loop, end to end, not just the part that improved. There is a deeper point underneath all of this. The reason AI return is hard to measure is not that the math is hard. It is that the inputs are uncertain and the vendor's numbers are optimistic. So the most valuable thing a CFO can have is not a better spreadsheet. It is a reference point from a peer who already ran the same kind of AI investment and can tell you what the real numbers turned out to be. The vendor will give you their model. A CFO at a comparable company will give you the truth. What it actually cost, how long it actually took to pay back, and where the hidden costs were. That benchmark is worth more than any framework, because it corrects the one thing a framework cannot, the optimism baked into your assumptions. That is exactly the kind of exchange the CFO Executive Forum is built for. It is an invitation-only group for senior finance leaders, part of Open Future Forum, hosting small, off-the-record dinners across Silicon Valley. Finance leaders compare notes on real AI investments off the record, with no vendor in the room steering the numbers. When a CFO can ask another CFO what an AI deployment really cost and really returned, the measurement gets honest in a way no internal model can match. There is a sixth discipline, the careful finance leaders add, and it is the one that catches the most self-deception. Measure against a real baseline, captured before you deploy, not against a memory of how things used to be. The reason this matters is that once an AI system is in place, everyone remembers the old way as slower and more painful than it actually was, and the improvement gets inflated. If you did not write down what the task cost and how long it took before the AI, you have nothing honest to measure the after against, and the return becomes a story rather than a number. So capture the baseline first. It is unglamorous, and it is the difference between a measured result and a flattering guess. Connected to that is the counterfactual. The honest question is not whether things got better after you deployed the AI. It is whether they got better because of the AI, rather than because of something else that changed at the same time. Maybe volume dropped. Maybe the team got more experienced. Maybe a process change did the real work. AI gets credit for improvements it did not cause all the time, because it is the most visible new thing in the room. A disciplined CFO asks what else changed and tries to isolate the AI's actual contribution, because funding the next project on a return the AI did not really produce is how a budget quietly fills with investments that do not work. The vendor will never ask this question for you. A peer who already ran the same investment often will, which is one more reason the peer benchmark is worth more than the model. So how should a CFO measure the return on AI? Name what it replaces. Count the full cost, including oversight. Set the payback in writing before you deploy. Fund on hard return and treat soft return as a bonus. Measure the whole loop, not just the improved part. And pressure test your assumptions against a peer who already did it. Do that, and AI becomes a measured investment instead of an act of faith. Open Future Forum is a private executive community in Silicon Valley that runs small, off-the-record dinners for C-suite executives. 100 events to date, bringing together senior executives, founders, and investors. If you are a CFO or senior finance leader who wants to compare real AI return numbers with peers, you can request an invitation to the CFO Executive Forum through Open Future Forum. I'm Murray Newlands from Open Future Forum. See you in the next briefing.